The Helvik council chamber hung thick with the kind of silence that preceded a political execution.
Admiral Larrick, our fleet is a rusting joke. The economy crumbles, and our rivals sharpen their blades.
He's not wrong, but this theater is designed to bury me before the council.
You assured us the fleet was ready for any engagement. Instead, we have 200 obsolete hulls and a defense pact that laughs at us.
Larry's knuckles whitened on the table edge. Every word was a nail in his career.
The budget constraints from the last accord left us no choice. I did what was possible, not what was popular.
Possible no longer matters, Admiral. You have one standard cycle to present a viable fleet expansion plan, or this council will find someone who can.
A year to conjure ships from thin air. They know it's impossible.
The council adjourned with a hollow gavel strike, leaving Admiral Larrick standing alone in the empty chamber.
I need a miracle, or a deal so insane no one will see the dagger until it's too late.
In the cold solitude of his quarters, Admiral Larrick stared at the datapad that chimed with improbable news. A human broker named David Chen was offering 400 decommissioned Terran frigates at a price that barely covered recycling costs.
400 hulls for the price of a single cruiser. This has to be a trap or a desperate error.
He pulled up the holographic specs. The frigates were sleek, modern, with maintenance records so clean they looked fabricated.
But if I refuse this, the council tears my insignia off within the month. I have no card left to play.
Larrick composed a message with the hesitance of a man signing a confession. He requested a meeting on neutral ground.
Humanity is handing me a loaded weapon. I'll take it and check the chamber before I pull the trigger.
The meeting was set aboard an independent station, a bland cylinder of diplomacy that favored no species.
Whatever game the humans are playing, I won't let the Helvik become their pawn.
The shuttle docked with a soft clang, and Larrick stepped into the station's sterile corridor, carrying the cold weight of a hope that smelled of poison. The conference room was as neutral as the station itself, gray walls, a single table, and a human waiting with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes.
Admiral Larrick, I'm David Chen. Please, sit. I think you'll find this offer worth the journey.
Larrick scanned the man across from him. Salt and pepper hair, tailored suit, coffee cup steaming casually. Nothing casual about the contract he laid on the table.
400 Terran frigates, fully decommissioned but meticulously maintained. You'll save our government the cost of mothballing, and your fleet gains real teeth.
At this price, you're practically giving them away. What's the real catch?
No catch, Admiral. Earth's military budget is being restructured. These hulls are surplus. The only condition is a 10-year support agreement, routine software patches, standard procedure.
The term software patches settled in Larrick's gut like a stone, but the price was obscene. He needed obscene.
I'll want my engineers to inspect every bolt and line of code before we finalize anything.
David nodded, sliding a preliminary agreement across the polished surface. Larrick hesitated, then picked up the pen.
This buys me a year, or it buries me. Let's find out which.
Helvik engineering teams swarmed the first frigate with every scanner and paranoid instinct. Keth led the internal sweep, crawling through conduits and peeling back panels.
Not a single anomaly. No hidden hardware. It's like they built these ships to be exactly what they seem.
Week after week, piles of dissected components stacked up in the labs, each tagged and cleared.
Too clean. Every diagnostic returns optimal. A ship this old should have irregularities.
Admiral Larrick arrived in the docking bay. 30 days after the contract signing, his patience frayed.
Admiral, we found nothing. Not a trap, not a bug. Either these ships are flawless, or we're missing something fundamental.
Keep looking. Pull every data core. Dissect every log. I want a reason to walk away, but I need it on paper.
After 47 days, the Helvik engineers classified the frigates clean. The purchase was authorized.
We passed every hardware inspection. Yet the only variable we can't fully test is the software, and we're bound to 10 years of their patches.
In his office, Admiral Larrick signed the final contract with a deliberate hand. The maintenance clause was inescapable, but the ink was dry.
If there's a trap buried in update code, Keth will dig it out. For now, the Helvic fleet just quadrupled its firepower.
Within months, Terran frigates were repainted in Helvic crimson and deployed across the sector. Their sleek hulls made the old fleet look like scrap. The first software patch arrived from Earth encoded in a standard maintenance bundle, less than a megabyte of unremarkable code.
This update optimizes nav buffers and coolant loops. Harmless. Exactly what a routine patch should look like.
Over the following years, dozens of updates arrived. Each one silent, each one approved. The patches became invisible. A box Keth ticked without a second thought. The Helvic Federation grew bold. With 400 fresh warships, they crushed a border dispute in 3 days and looked for bigger prey.
This fleet is the sharpest blade in the quadrant. Thanks to human short-sightedness, we've become unstoppable.
A decade passed. The frigate's original Terran architecture was buried under Helvic modifications, icons, and routines. But the patch pipeline from Earth never stopped.
10 years of patches and nothing has ever broken. That's either perfection or a bomb waiting for the right trigger.
3 days later, an obscure subroutine in the latest update caught Keth's eye. 60 lines of code wrapped in a cosmetic UI fix.
It doesn't interact with any ship system. It just exists, like a placeholder waiting for a missing instruction.
Keth filed an urgent priority report, flagging the code as a passive anomaly and requesting fleet-wide analysis.
A dead subroutine? In 10 years, that's the worst you've found, Keth? Humans left junk code in their systems. Nothing to lose sleep over.
He didn't even look at the data. My rank means nothing when he smells another victory.
Across the sector, Helvic warships conducted patrols that devoured contested space. Skirmishes erupted weekly, each one a decisive win. The Federation's admirals, Larik above all, became convinced they could challenge any power, even humanity.
New Horizon colony is lightly defended. A single strike will take it, and the system's resources become ours.
Admiral, if the software trap activates when we fight humans, the entire fleet could...
The decision is made. Prepare the fleet for immediate deployment. Keth, your paranoia is noted and dismissed.
Docking clamps retracted across the fleet. 400 reactors spooled to war output, their hum a promise of annihilation. Admiral Larik stood on the flagship's command deck, his uniform immaculate, the weight of command resting easy on his shoulders.
Officers of the Helvic Federation, today we reclaim what lesser species have squandered. New Horizon will be our victory monument.
The words broadcast to all 400 ships met with disciplined cheers and raised fists on every bridge.
They're cheering an ambush that hasn't sprung yet. Every hull I scanned is a potential coffin.
Keth tried one final direct channel to the Admiral, but his clearance had been suspended. His warning stayed trapped in his throat. The Armada assembled at the system's edge, 400 crimson-striped hulls dwarfing the starlight and waiting for the jump signal. Larik gave the order. Space folded, and the Helvic war machine hurled itself toward New Horizon. In the colony command center, Governor Elena Reyes received the first anomaly alerts. 400 contacts emerging from warp with attack vectors. It was no drill. The trap was about to spring, and no one on New Horizon knew they were the bait. The Helvic Armada tore into real space above New Horizon. 400 crimson lances aimed at a sleeping colony. In the colony command center, Governor Reyes's console screamed with targeting alarms. She ordered the planetary defense net online.
Forward batteries. Open fire. I want those orbital platforms vaporized before they can launch a single missile.
A weapons officer pressed the firing stud. The first volley was a wall of orange light. Satellites and defense platforms shattered into debris before their weapons could charge. Ground-based cannons coughed a few cyan streaks toward orbit. Most never reached the fleet.
Pathetic. The humans didn't expect a fight. This will be over by dinner.
On the same bridge, a tactical officer glanced at his readouts. The fleet systems all showed nominal, too nominal.
All ships advance to firing position. Prepare a full broadside on the colony's defense grid. We end this now.
The fleet sailed forward, turrets tracking. the kill switch dormant and patient in every hull. Larrick's fire order raced across the network. The fleet's weapons surged, then every console simultaneously bled to black.
What is this? Report. Why are my screens dead?
Across the bridge, officers stabbed at unresponsive controls. The flagship drifted, guns frozen, reactor output dropping to idle.
This isn't a malfunction. It's exactly what Keth warned me about.
On every ship in the Armada, the same silence fell. 400 warships became 400 tombs of inert metal. Keth forced his way through panicked crew, already pulling up the route command logs on a flickering console.
The attack order must have triggered it. Every dormant subroutine just woke up at once.
Engineering, Keth? Someone give me a status. I want every tech in the fleet on this.
The only response was the hum of life support and the distant, cold panic of 10,000 crew members realizing they were trapped. Keth found a surviving console and accessed the core execution log. A string of dormant instructions now sat active, their purpose indecipherable. Keth cross-referenced the patch install logs against the execution sequence. The buried fragments from a decade of updates aligned like a jigsaw. One subroutine, inert for years, now glowed orange on the screen. Activation Protocol. Keth felt the weight of his unanswered reports.
Admiral, it's a kill switch. Every maintenance patch carried a piece. Our attack order just assembled the weapon.
Before Larry could reply, the flagship shuddered. External commands were seizing the broadcast system. A comms panel lit up with a signal spike, a priority hardline from Earth, routing through the decade-old maintenance relays. The main screen went blank, then flickered to life under remote control. The bridge fell silent.
So Earth wants to dictate terms. Put it through. Let's see the face of the architect.
The image resolved into a quiet office. David Chen leaned back in a leather chair, a coffee cup steaming beside him. No uniform, no crisis. Just the broker, looking like a man enjoying his morning coffee.
David Chen, the man who handed me a contract and a ticking bomb with his left hand.
Admiral Larrick, I trust you're finding the change of circumstances educational.
Not a gloat, a lecture. He's treating this like a lesson I should have seen coming.
The broker took a slow sip of coffee, letting the silence stretch. A practiced move that said he controlled the clock.
Under Clause 7B of the purchase agreement, any hostile action against a Terran world voids all rights. This fleet is now Human Republic salvage.
Salvage. 400 warships, and he dismisses them like scrap metal for the recycling yard.
On the battleship's dark bridge, the Admiral's clenched fists were the only sign of motion.
I'm not here to negotiate, Admiral. Recovery teams are en route. Your ships will be boarded peacefully if you stand down.
You laid this trap the moment I signed. Every patch, every handshake, it was all a slow assassination.
David's expression held the patience of a man who'd already won. No triumph, only the unshakable certainty of leverage.
I have to find a loophole, but every second, the cage tightens around 10,000 souls. You said the trap wasn't in the hardware. Explain how we missed it for 10 years.
Every maintenance patch you installed over the last decade carried a dormant instruction. Harmless alone. When your fleet attacked a human world, they combined.
A holographic copy of the maintenance agreement appeared on the bridge screen, a previously hidden subsection highlighted in red.
We inspected every bolt. We never looked at the legal fine print that made us install the weapon ourselves.
Admiral, I've cross-verified. Every patch from Earth contained a fragment of this kill switch. The attack order was the key that assembled them.
Keth called up the patch logs. Decades of mundane updates, each worthless on its own. Now a digital guillotine.
We simply let you arm the bomb. Your own engineers certified every install. The contract never lied, it just waited.
The long con. He didn't need to hide a bomb. He tricked us into carrying the pieces ourselves for 10 years.
The elegance was brutal. No sabotage, no Trojan hardware. The weapon was the contract's fine print, enforced by routine.
We never stood a chance. He didn't beat our fleet. He beat our lawyers and our complacency.
Your indignation is noted, Admiral, but the legality is ironclad. Shall I read the clause aloud?
The contract filled the screen, and a single paragraph glowed. Any hostile act against Human Republic assets renders all purchased units salvage.
You breached the contract. The ships are now legally mine. Surrender them and your crews peacefully, or we'll take them by force.
10,000 souls in my custody. If I fight, I kill them with a gesture. If I surrender, their lives are bartered for my shame. You'd fire on helpless ships? That's your humanity?
We'd prefer not to. But the same contract that gave you these hulls allows me to defend them. You have 1 hour to decide.
The Admiral's hand came away from the console flecked with blue blood, split knuckles forgotten.
Resistance is suicide. Surrender is dishonor. He's made the choice impossible on purpose.
David's image remained, sipping coffee as though awaiting a routine report.
1 hour to decide the fate of an armada, and I have no fleet, no weapons, only a pen.
Admiral, I've combed every line. The contract is legally airtight, and the kill switch cannot be undone without the original Terra keys.
No override. No access to weapon systems hidden in the code.
In the cramped wardroom, Larry's senior staff gathered, faces hollow, voices sharp with terror. One commander slammed the table. "We have 10,000 crew aboard. Pride won't keep them breathing." Another voice, weak. "We could vent atmosphere, scuttle the ships, deny them everything." The suggestion died in the silence.
Whether I fight or fold, the Council will burn me. At least this way 10,000 families won't receive folded flags.
He opened his eyes, and the man who had once conquered 3 border systems looked 20 years older.
Helvik Fleet, this is Admiral Larik. All tactical officers to stand down. Power off remaining batteries. We accept David Shen's terms.
I was right. I've never wanted so badly to be wrong.
He typed a transmission to the coffee-drinking architect. "We accept."
Acknowledged, Admiral. Human recovery ships are inbound. Your crews will be treated according to galactic convention.
Within the hour, sensor screens lit up with Terran repair tugs, their hulls marked with the hammer and anvil salvage emblem. They moved through the dead armada like mechanics through a scrapyard, precise and unafraid. Helvik crew members filed down boarding ramps in silent columns, hands empty, heads bowed. Not a single weapon was visible. In the main bay, human Marines in exosuits stood as silent witnesses. The click of their boot maglocks was the only sound.
I am witnessing the funeral of my command. The eulogy is the hum of human salvage cutters.
On the bridge, the main viewer showed the frigate Echo of Vengeance being boarded. A human officer saluted the empty command chair before taking it. David's image reappeared, coffee replaced by a satisfaction that did not gloat, but was absolute.
Admiral, your crews will be repatriated through neutral intermediaries. You'll remain aboard as my guest until formalities conclude.
Larik nodded, the gesture costing more than any battle he'd ever fought. The Human Republic released a statement that rippled across interstellar channels. The Helvik attack had triggered a dormant legal trap.
Admiral Larik has surrendered our fleet without a fight, walked 10,000 souls into a legal ambush. This is incompetence dressed in uniform.
The council chamber erupted. Accusations flew like shrapnel, and every voice demanded a sacrificial name. Larik stood motionless in the defendant's circle, his once immaculate uniform stripped of every decoration.
You were warned of the software risk, Admiral. We gave you authority and you handed it to a human broker over coffee. The Federation may not survive your failure.
The council voted with brutal speed. Larik was suspended from all rank and duties, pending a tribunal for dereliction of command. By nightfall, that image Larik's face beneath the word treason was on every public screen in the capital.
They asked for a fleet. I gave them one. They asked for victory. I gave them that too, until the trapdoor opened. Now I carry the weight alone.
Guards escorted him to a temporary holding suite. The door sealed with a hiss that sounded like a verdict.
The man who commanded 400 warships now waits in a cell with nothing but a pen. Maybe that's the real joke.
The tribunal lasted 17 minutes. The verdict, guilty of catastrophic strategic failure, was read without inflection.
17 minutes to erase a career. They didn't even pause for the breath between sentences.
The clerk read the forfeiture. All rank, all honors, all decorations to be surrendered immediately. Larrick unclipped each medal himself, the metal clinking onto the polished desk like shards of a broken mirror. The guards escorted him out of the military complex. He walked down the stone steps a civilian, his uniform replaced by plain cloth. His quarters had been cleared. The family hologram was gone, the shelves bare except for dust outlines. Through a rain-streaked window, he saw his partner and child boarding a transport, not looking back.
So this is what absolute zero feels like. No rank, no family, no future. Just the echo of a broker's smile.
He turned away from the window, the empty room swallowing him whole.
They left me a pen. Maybe I'll use it to write the truth, or maybe just to sign my own oblivion.
In a rented room, barely larger than a supply closet, Larrick began to write. Not orders, words. The manuscript was titled The Long Con. Its cover showed a coffee cup and a broken contract seal.
Let them read how humanity baited a hungry fleet and reeled it in with fine print. They'll see David Chen for what he is.
Publication day arrived with a modest holographic ad on a back alley market screen. The first week's sales numbered in the dozens. By month's end, the book was in clearance bins.
They don't see a warning, they see a failure explaining his mistakes. The galaxy thinks the joke's on me.
Within a year, the memoir vanished from shelves. Libraries shelved it under military debacles for reference, not read.
I wrote the truth so carefully that even a child could see the trap. And still, they preferred the lie of their own invincibility.
A single copy, dog-eared and coffee-stained, sat on his table, the only proof he had ever held a fleet.
So this is my legacy. A bargain bin memoir and a warning no species will believe until they sign their own fleet away.
On Earth, in a ceremony that lasted longer than Larrick's trial, David Chen was promoted to Director of Terran Asset Recovery. His colleagues applauded not a warrior, but an architect, the man who had reclaimed 400 ships without firing a shot.
They call it a strategic acquisition. I call it the longest coffee break of my career.
In the orbital dry docks, robotic arms stripped crimson paint and restored black and gold Terran colors to the reclaimed hulls. The ships were integrated into the Human Republic's border patrols, their software purged of Helvic code, except the kill switch, which remained dormant once more. In David's office, a glass case displayed the original contract, the clause now famous as Chen's reclamation.
Every signature on this paper is a promise. My job is to ensure the promise is never broken on our side, at least.
His assistant pinged his wrist console. Another desperate species had inquired about surplus hulls. The next meeting was already scheduled. David's personal shuttle, sleek and pearl white, detached from the station and glided toward the arranged coordinates.
People never read the fine print. That's what makes it such reliable artillery.
The station's conference room was the same shade of gray, the same view of stars. Only the face across the table was new.
Envoy Tarquin, thank you for coming. I believe you'll find our terms unusually generous.
A fresh contract slid across the polished surface, dense with clause numbers and a maintenance annex that took a year to trigger. The envoy's scaly hand hovered, reptile eyes scanning the text, the low price, the mandatory support clause.
Standard procedure, I assure you. Our software engineers will handle everything. You just fly the ships.
A pause. Then the clawed fingers picked up the pen, the same hesitation Larrick once showed, now worn by a new species. The pen pressed ink into paper. Another fleet now had a legal fuse lit.
They always sign. Desperation is the most reliable ink.
The contract was already sliding into a briefcase when David's wrist console pinged. 3 more inquiries pending.
The queue never empties, and the fine print never gets read.
On Helvic Prime, economic graphs plummeted like a dying star. The loss of the fleet gutted trade, defense, and pride. A new coalition rose, promising to rebuild. Their first decree: never again sign with humans without reading every line. In a dusty library, a young Helvic opened Larrick's memoir, its pages still stiff from the bargain bin. They read the warning. Whether they would believe it remained a question for another decade. David Chen's shuttle became a silhouette against a nebula as it streaked toward the next negotiation. The galaxy was full of desperate fleets, and there was always another admiral who thought he was the exception. So the cycle turned. A pen, a promise, a patch, and the countdown to another silent surrender. In the end, the only thing louder than a warhead was the fine print that made it unnecessary. The contract always wins. End of transmission. The signed contract lay on the table. Ink still wet, the name of a new species etched beside David Chen's. No hands touched it now. It sat alone, a silent trap wrapped in legalese and courtesy. The image dissolved into the void, the paper becoming a hologram, the hologram a star among stars. It drifted, weightless, past the shattered hulls of Helvic ambition, past the dry docks of Terran recovery, past the dusty library where a young reader turned the last page of a forgotten memoir, past David Chen, whose shuttle was already a speck in the nebula, coffee cup warming his hands, until at last it reached the central black, where all contracts become one. A single line shone from the page, Clause 7B, and then faded. The screen went black. The end.